Welcome to the Robyn Graham Show, the podcast for purpose-driven women who want to achieve sustainable success without having to be on social media. Hey, beautiful friends, welcome to the Robyn Graham Show. I'm an author, and I know that many of you out there are authors or are wanting to become an author. And there's a lot of information out there that I have to say, I just am not buying. I don't believe we have to have 15,000 followers on Instagram to become a successful author. I don't believe that social media should dictate whether or not we are good enough to become a published author, whether or not someone accepts us as an author or wants to publish our book based on those numbers. I find it so frustrating. And I published through a hybrid publisher the first time I published, and that wasn't a factor then. And we sold a lot of books, and we were number one bestsellers in multiple categories for 2 books. So there's a lot to be said that numbers on social media don't necessarily define our success. And that's what we're going to dive into today. So this is for everyone, but whether you're growing a business, whether you want to write a book and publish that book, or whether you're already an author, I think it and want to publish more books in the future, I think you're going to love this conversation and you're going to discover this sense of freedom around what's possible for you for success, as well as for potentially becoming a published author. So, my guest today is Allie Marie Smith, and she is the author of a soon to be published book, A 30-Day Guide, or actually, it's Social Media Reset, a 30-day guided journey to unplug, reconnect with God, and regain your joy. And we're going to talk about her journey to publish this book and how she's doing that with less than 2,000 followers on Instagram. So she's living proof that this is possible. And I can't wait to share her story with you. Allie Marie Smith, welcome to the Robyn Graham Show.
Oh, it's so fun to be here. Thank you, Robyn. I just love your work and I love our conversation. So this will be fun.
Yeah, we're so on the same page when it comes to faith and life and social media and business and ministry. So I'm really thrilled to be able to share you with my listeners. And listeners, make a note because Allie will be back again in July, just before her book launches, where we will go into more of the spiritual side of social media and living our life without it, or at least limiting it. So anyway, stay tuned for that episode. It will air July 8th. But for now, Allie, let's dive into how you've achieved all of this success without depending on social media.
Sure. Well, I want to say that so often, we see someone write a best-selling book or, go viral or, have this business that just takes off. And we think, wow, I wish I could have that level of success, right? And so often we don't know the backstory, right? We don't know the years and the years of hidden faithfulness that go into that. And so with this book, it's been, I'm so excited about it, but it's come, this amazing opportunity has come after 20 years of serving in ministry and trying to add value to people's lives and creating an organization. And so it's been a long journey. And I think that each of us, we really need to define success for ourselves first. Because, and I actually have an entire chapter about this in the book called Defining Success, because yes, it's an invitation to take a break from social media, but really more than that, it is a guide to a flourishing life and like 30 topical reflections on principles for a flourishing life. And so one of them was about defining success. And so I'd love to just kind of dive into that with you. So there is our version of success. There is God's version of success or definition, you would say, and there is the world's definition of success. And so each one of us needs to get quiet and to have a time of reflection and choose, how do we want to define success for ourselves? because people will put their plans on your life and we'll make our plans, but ultimately it's God's plan that prevails, right? So we need to decide, am I going to live my life for the audience of one? Am I going to live for the glory of God? And, you know, work hard in the unseen moments. I have another chapter called The Beauty of an Unseen Life, right? Or am I going to try to conform to the world's definition of success? And today we know what that looks like, right? It looks like a huge social media following. For women, it looks like a walk-in closet bigger than my first studio apartment. It looks like the perfect body, the beautiful marriage, the kids. So, that's the world's portrait of success, right? So are we going to pursue that? Or are we going to define success and what it means before God and myself? We need to define our values, because that's going to determine, because once you know your values, you can have 100,000 people following you on social media, and that might look like success to the world, but your life might be falling apart. You might be dealing with overwhelm and anxiety and stress. And is that successful? So we need to decide that before we really move on. So I'm kind of getting off off topic a little bit, but I wanted to throw that out there. Do you have any thoughts about that, Robyn, about defining
Oh,
success?
I do. I do. And I think it's really important to connect it to our values. And you mentioned values. And I think in my book, I have a whole chapter on values. And when we are aligned with our values, we make better decisions, right? If faith is our value, who are we going to go to for the best advice? We're going to go to the Lord, right? So we're going to be able to make better decisions and achieve success in a much healthier way. But I think aligning with our values with everything we do. And so if publishing a book is one of our goals and God has called us to that, he's obviously going to equip us to do that, right? Now, the success of that book, if he's going to make sure it reaches everyone he wants it to reach. But that doesn't mean we just sit back and don't do the work to get it to the market, to write it proficiently, to get the attention on it. We still have to do the things, right? To help create that success that's going to happen. And I think once that the values are decided, and we know that they're aligning with our definition of success, then we can actually hear him better and be able to take each step that we need to take to achieve that level of success that
Right.
he's put on our heart. I mean, I think ultimately when we have if we are following scripture, right? And we believe Christ is our savior, we're going to work towards a definition of success that is pleasing to him,
Right.
not the definition of success that is secular or worldly that could cause us to ultimately falter, right? So if he's blessing our efforts because he's called us to this, that success is going to come from him alongside our hard work and what he's calling us to do to achieve it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to encourage any authors, maybe it's been really hard to find an agent and you're not getting any responses, or you've been, submitting to publishers. And it might be disappointing, but I do think it is important, as we talked about, to have that spiritual definition of success, because maybe selling 300 copies of the book that you've written is really, from an internal perspective, way more spiritually successful than it is being a New York Times bestselling author. And so I do think putting our heads down, putting in the hard work, the unseen work, right? God's going to bless that. And He's going to open the doors that He wants to open for you. And we have to sometimes be okay with a life that doesn't generate a lot of book sales or a lot of social media followers or a lot of attention. Um, so I think, being faithful to the call God has, keep pursuing that dream and leaving the results up to Him, and knowing that if you are living for God and you are being faithful and you are making the most of the talents He's given you, you are an overwhelming success already.
Absolutely. And Allie, it's interesting because you and I both had a mission to help or make sure that girls did not kill themselves. And when I when I sat down to write and to publish, I just had this call and I was like, if I can save one person, one girl from not dying by suicide, I will have done what I was called to do. And I think you had a very similar mission as well. And not everyone's going to have a mission or a goal or a purpose that is that it sounds that profound or that deep. But my emphasis here is not on the avoidance of suicide, but on the impact of one, right? Because if that is who God wants us to help and serve, and we reach that person, we've done our job. We have achieved success. And we will never know that. We will never know how many people have read our books. And our social media followers don't determine that either.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
I love
think
that you.
it's something
Yeah,
to remember.
absolutely. I love that you said that. I wrote my first big girl book, Wonderfully Made, during COVID for 6 months, and I sat in bed. And it's had modest success, right? But the biggest the most amazing thing that I did is I had a girl send me a message, and really I didn't get a lot of messages, about the book.
Mhm.
Sometimes you don't really hear, but one girl said, I used to think that I was worthless and that no one loved me and there wasn't a purpose. And she said, I've read your book Wonderfully Made, and now I know God loves me and there's a purpose for my life and I'm going to keep living. So that is amazing to your point. But
Yeah.
I guess back to your question, about how did I end up, writing a book? I will say it's really like by God's grace and just being faithful to the calling he has. And we each have our own unique callings. And, mine was unique in the fact that one day I received an email, and, like, done this ministry for 20 years. And I just received an email from an agent and said, I see this work that you are doing. And do you have a book in you? And I said, yes. And, God just opened that door. And then, with this new book, Social Media Reset, it was so interesting because I am not famous on social media, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And so when my agent went to pitch this book, I got so many rejections because they said, I'm not famous enough on social media. And they said, how is anyone ever going to promote a book if you're not really on social media and you don't have enough followers? And obviously, that wasn't true. By God's grace, I ended up getting an amazing book deal with Tyndale House Publishers, specifically Tyndale Refresh, the imprint, which is the largest Christian publishing company in the world. And that was basically with a private account, no verified blue check, and about like 1,500 followers. And so, that's been my unique journey. And I agree with you, Robyn, that, social media followers really it doesn't sell books. It's really, word of mouth and how that book is going to impact someone's life, and are they going to share it with someone? And, you have so many amazing marketing strategies off social media, SEO, writing blogs, so many amazing strategies, email list building that are going to actually result in more success. And, before I forget, I want to talk about, I wrote this in the chapter 2, Defining Success, is about Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, and the 10,000 hour principle. Some people may be already familiar with this. So, he studied the lives of people who were very elite at their crafts or at their discipline. And he found that it took them about 10,000 hours to become elite at their craft. And that came out to 40 hours a week for 10 years. And so today, many people, 15% of girls are spending 40 hours a week on social media. The average adult is spending 2.5 to 3 hours on social media. So what if we swap that time scrolling, trying to get likes, follows, in order to seemingly be successful, and we use that time and we spent it with our head down in the unseen moments, becoming elite at our craft and creating work that is Excellent, because we aren't distracted, because we're focused, we're disciplined, we're doing the hard work. And yeah, it's not getting a lot of attention, but that's going to lead to success. And so much success, as you know, Robyn, comes through relationships. When you know people and you have relationships and they generally know that you care about them, you want to add value to people's lives, you want to build them up, you want to serve people, you're not self-seeking. You write thank you notes, you call people, doors are going to open for you as we become faithful, and we don't live for the approval of others. And again, God's going to make us, some people are going to be best-selling authors. Some people are going to sell 300 copies of their self-published books. But like we talked about, when we live for the glory of God and we make the most of the gifts and talents and the hours and days and years of our lives, we are going to be spiritually successful. And that is going to bring peace and joy and purpose. And it's going to leave a beautiful legacy for those around us, and amazing work. Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people write good books with like becoming a social media personality. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. I could never do it. That's why pretty much every time I write a book, I'm sparsely on social media. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's not enough hours in the day if you're trying to divide your time that way. So, Allie, tell us about so the agent reached out to you because of your ministry work. Okay, amazing. That's incredible. Um, and everybody's like, well, yeah, that fell in her lap, but how would we do it without social media if these publishers told her no without a big following on social media? What was the difference with Tyndale? Like, why did they think that was okay? Or
because
what worked?
they believed in the book. And I think they had faith in me as a person. Um, I had good relationship connection with them. They saw my passion behind this project. They saw that I was willing to go above and beyond, and they saw the need for it. They realized this is good work. Not, yeah, she's not super popular, but this is needed and this is valuable. And we're going to see past, her lack of social media stardom. And they're an amazing publisher. And there's many publishers, especially Christian publishers, who really value the eternal, and they're really not hung up on being successful. I mean, you look right at the authors of ancient authors, right? Like millions of copies of books sold. There was no social media 15 years ago. Gary, so many authors, and that comes from word of mouth, from creating
Mhm.
good work. And when you're engrossed in social media, like, I'm sorry, you're just not going to do as good of work. So, but I have an amazing team at Tyndale, and I'm just so grateful that they saw past that, and they saw the substance and the need for the book and connected with me as a person.
You said a couple of things, and this is why I asked you that question, was because relationship marketing, number one, and that's where referrals come from, that's word of mouth, but relationships, when we build strong connections and relationships, doors open.
Absolutely. Hmm.
And it also comes back to our personal brand, right? You're truly authentic and you demonstrate your vulnerability and your passion so people can see how critical or how crucial this is for you as the writer to get this message out. And I think when people see that personal brand and the depth behind the person and their passion and their mission, they're going to connect with it deeper and they're going to believe in what's possible. Not to mention God was on your side. We can't forget that, but I think
It
it
was
all comes
mostly God.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really study a lot of John Maxwell's leadership material, and he's just so much about adding value to people's lives. And so, what is our mission? Are we focused on, getting attention and getting eyes on us, or are we more focused on putting our eyes on other people and making their lives better and adding value to them? Because when we do that, people are going to know that you care, that you want to help them, you want to make their lives better, and you're going to be more successful. But, like when we, try to put attention on ourselves and, promote ourselves and make it about us, like we're just not going to be as successful. I'm not saying that I do that perfectly. Like I can be very, self-absorbed, or who doesn't want attention, but I think adding value to people, and that's what, if you are a person of faith, like that is our calling, is to bring love and hope and joy to other people. And that is spiritual success, which is better than any, like fool's gold version of worldly success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Allie, this has been fabulous. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you. I think you're pretty awesome. I'm really inspired by you, and can definitely learn a lot from you. And I'm just so grateful God brought our paths together. And it wasn't on social media. It was because I think I Googled like, Christian business coach, no social media. I honestly think that's what I Googled, and I found you, and I was like, okay, she's a Christian. She's like into growing an amazing business, and she can care less about social media. And I was like, I have to reach out to this woman.
That is so funny. So there's the power of SEO, folks,
Right,
right there,
exactly.
right
And
there.
blogging, I
And
believe in blogging over posting, for so many reasons too. So.
absolutely,
And actually, I
absolutely.
have a blog called How to Be Successful Without Social Media. And you probably have articles too like that. I know this is
Yeah,
what you teach. So,
yeah, we both do. And I will link your website in the show notes, and I will put the link, well, yeah, to your website. That's it, because not really social media, and the book isn't available yet. So I was almost going to say, and the link to your book, but that you can find that information too and pre-order it on her website, listeners. So
yeah,
if
and
you're interested in that.
I want to share really quick. I have a 5-week teaching course that's coming out with it and producing it in Joshua Tree. So really encouraging women to go do the reset together. We're even inviting churches, like imagine hundreds, your whole church group going off together, having meals together, living intentionally, building good community. So I see this like as a whole movement. And as we do, as it's like a type of fast from social media, it's actually an opportunity for us as women of faith to fast and pray for our girls, teen girls who are severely struggling because of social media, with 1 in 3 teen girls seriously contemplating attempting suicide. And this is our responsibility of women of faith to go on this rescue mission to save these girls and share the love and the hope of Christ with them. So you can see all that on my website. When it comes out, I'll have my course there. And just think about bringing all the girls and women you love in your church, book club through this experience together. And you're just going to have so much more joy and purpose and peace in your life when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so thrilled for you, and I'm so thrilled for the world that you landed this publishing deal despite no Instagram followers and are going to be sharing this and the impact it's going to have. I mean, we talk about a ripple effect of good. This is just huge. It's absolutely huge. So thank you
Mm.
for doing that and putting yourself out there for us.
Yeah, thank you, Robyn.
Thanks. Listeners, thanks so much for being here. If you enjoyed this episode and believe in this message, please share it. That's how I can continue to get good guests like Ali Marie here, but also this is so important. I mean, we're talking about our spiritual well-being. We're talking about being able to believe in ourselves and not just having the world dictate to us what we have to have in order to be successful. So please share the episode and leave a rating and review, and I will see you all here next time. And that's a wrap, friends. A heartfelt thank you for being here. I know there are many other ways that you could spend your time, so I truly appreciate you joining me. And be sure and visit the website, therobyngraham.com/resources for a plethora of resources to help you grow your business for long-term success.